Hello and thanks for checking out ChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Hello Canadian MJ friends, hope you're doing well. We're going to look at a bunch of names in this video, and this is the order in terms of most votes received from our members of what we're going to cover. TGOD, OGI, MedMen, TRST, RIV, IAN, MPX, KSHB, and CWEB. So before we get into it, a couple things I want to point out, and one of them is a post on Reddit. So this post on Reddit says, we are at the start of a massive bull run. And then this is his information. He posts a chart, which we'll look at in just a second. We have 3 higher lows on the daily over the past year. Because of the Altria deal, we will likely see a sustained bull move similar to the past 2, both roughly lasting 2 months of bull control. So he's pretty much saying this has happened in the past. We can expect this to happen in the future. And nothing against this individual. In my opinion, it's just a biased tunnel vision view of the current market scenario, and it's viewing the Canadian MJ space in a vacuum, so to speak, and not talking about the external factors whatsoever. So first off, before I get into it, I would love for this to be the truth. I'm going to make a lot more money if the market is bullish for Canadian MJ than if it is bearish. So my bias is I want things to go up, but I don't let that bias come into my analysis in any way, shape, or form, because my bias is derived from the charts, and the charts are what's going to dictate whether we are bullish or bearish. So first things first, here's the chart that he posted. And one thing that I do like is absolutely these higher lows are very important, and I like them even better on the weekly time frame, because you can see we are maintaining an uptrend with those higher lows. That's the most important factor here, and that's good to point out on this chart. So they pointed out the massive bull runs that we have had in the past, and here he is pointing out the Constellation deal, he or she of course, pointing out the Constellation deal, and now pointing out the Altria deal and saying we're in for a 2-month bull move because it's happened in the past. My rebuttal for that is we are in nowhere near the same market environment than we were back then. Number one, we had rec sales as a catalyst to look forward to. And number two, and most importantly, we had the S&P 500 at all-time highs. This is what the market was doing during that period that we just looked at. So this period right here, this run up to the all-time high into rec, is SPY, the S&P 500, doing this, which is all-time high. We had all-time highs 3 out of 5 weeks. We had a bull flag and continuation to further all-time highs, and pretty much an ideal, most bullish scenario for the S&P 500. Here we are today. We are on the verge of a collapse and a breakdown of very critical support on the S&P 500. If we break the October low of 259.85, we're looking at the February lows, and you better believe that fear, recession, and all of these buzzwords are going to be on the tip of every talking head's tongue and every article that you look at on the internet as we continue to break down if we lose this support level. So my rebuttal to this post, which has a ton of traction, 89% upvoted, 100 plus comments, 128 upvotes, and that's just everybody affirming this is what I want to hear. I like this. But, you know, groupthink aside, if we break this support level, the Canadian MJ sector cannot see a bull run, in my opinion. Can we bounce? Can we see a week of upside, maybe 2 weeks of upside? Absolutely. But if we break this support level, it's going to have a significant overhang of fear in the entire market. And again, this speculative new industry is lucrative when things are going great and, you know, exciting. But when things are fearful in the market, it's not where money's going to be going to, in my opinion. People aren't going to be pulling money out of Google and out of Microsoft and out of, you know, Bank of America and putting it into these underdeveloped companies that have not proven themselves long term. So if we break bullish, if we miraculously hold this support and break bullish, which is possible, you know, an inked deal between China and the US would go a long way for some short-term confidence. But if we break this triple top and head back to the all-time high, absolutely, Canadian MJ can see a couple-month run in response to that. If we do not, and if we break support, it's out of the question, in my opinion. Look at the correlation between SPY and CGC. This is the S&P 500 in the real candlesticks here, and then the background is CGC. Look at how correlated we are. There's a couple things I want to point out. The correlation, obviously, up to the all-time highs. SPY and CGC hit all-time highs at the same time. We had one last push to a new all-time high on CGC here due to the news event of the first day of sales. Since then, you can't see these candlesticks anymore. Why can you not see the candlesticks? Because we are more correlated to the S&P 500 with canopy than we have been at any other point on this chart. We had a loose correlation. They were going in the same direction, but this is pretty much day for day correlation. And we can see that looking at this data for the last 6 weeks, that if we were to see SPY break down and lose 259 support, the odds that we're going to see an inverse correlation suddenly and as the Canadian MJ sector see a bull run for 2 months is a pretty unlikely, extremely unlikely scenario. So again, the point of pointing this all out is, number one, confirmation bias and groupthink in full action, and number two, forgetting the broader perspective of a lot of other factors that are at play aside from just one deal and the Canadian MJ sector in a vacuum. So let's get into the technical analysis here of all these names. We're going to start on the weekly time frames and zoom in from there. We can automatically distinguish names from each other, who has weekly support, who is coming off fresh lower lows, and who's coming off an all-time low. Anybody at an all-time low is obviously weaker than any name that has weekly support still intact. So we're starting off with TGOD. TGOD does have a support level, but it's the all-time low, which is the only support level. So that's obviously a bit of a red flag for the bulls, but it did hold this time around, 245 and 258. So support held, and this is the most important resistance as far as the weekly time frame is concerned. On any bounce, anything under 498 is just a lower high, keeping the weekly downtrend. So a base of support is trying to be built. We could see some follow through, but I don't believe without any significant news that we're going to break the weekly lower high pattern anytime soon. As far as the daily chart goes, we're looking at the most important resistance, and this is going to be the case for the vast majority of individual names, where December 3rd is the most important resistance level. That's the case for CGC and a lot of the other big names, but anything under 352 is just a lower high on this bounce attempt. So 352 has to break, otherwise it's just a lower high. If we top out under 352 and pull back, we have to form a higher low compared to that 258 support level. So again, just like CGC and all these other major names, if we cannot break resistance and start to pull back, we're going to look for a higher low and a tightening range into next week. We did close up at the high of the day, which does stand out, as some of the other major names did not do that, but it's all about 352 this coming week. If we break 352, 371 is the next most important resistance level, and then there's some solid space to the upside if we can clear those resistances. But again, the most likely scenario, unless we can see the S&P 500 with a quick 180 turnaround from the lows, where we ended the week at the lows with bearish momentum, if we get that turnaround, we can test these resistance levels, but we have to be aware that anything under them is just a lower high. OGI, very easy bearish play here on the break of support. When you see a month-long battle to hold support right around $5 psychological, you know that if that clear support level breaks, you're going to get a lot of stop losses triggering, and you're going to get shorts jumping into positions. So here we had this 491 bear break, and the day after it, we went from the close of 491 all the way down to 430. That is a huge follow through. That is a 15% plus move in one day on that break of support. The bounce that we've seen now, let's look at the weekly first. Anything under, on the weekly time frame, anything under 572 is going to be a lower high. And then we're looking up at 678 as a lower high as well. Clear up some of these lines here. So those are the two resistances that we're looking at as far as the weekly time frame is concerned. As far as the daily chart goes, there's that level. So you can see we topped out at 571 or 570 and 572, and now we're looking at a lower high potentially being set at 537. Bulls have to pull back, form a higher low compared to 411, and then break the lower high pattern in order to change this daily trend. Clearly a very significantly different close on OGI than on TGOD down near the low of the day at the end of the week there. So again, daily trend still in a downtrend, work to do for the bulls to establish a higher low and then break the lower highs. MedMen on the weekly time frame coming off an all-time low, obviously a very significant red flag. That means there is no support whatsoever below 311, and this is on the CSE. Thanks to TradingView for finally putting some CSE charts up there. But it's all about 311 because of the lack of any support nearby, and you can see we broke the low all-time low at that point of 343 and saw an instant 10% drop. So again, the lack of support is certainly concerning for the bulls. Anything on the daily time frame under 495 is just a lower high. We have potentially topped out now at 451. If we get further pullback, that will be very clearly our new lower high. and the bulls must hold 311. So again, looking for a higher low compared to 311 and a break of the lower highs, which is required to change the trend. We do have a 4-hour higher low, and if you saw the video yesterday, this is something that we're looking for APHA to do potentially on Monday. So the higher low on the 4-hour is 357, and the bulls have to turn around Monday or Tuesday and break 451 to change this 4-hour trend and shift that momentum. So a tightening range to be watching: low, high of the 4-hour bounce, higher low, have to break to the higher high to change this trend. If we don't break 451 Monday or Tuesday, the bulls don't prove anything to us. Again, for all of these companies, we're in a mindset where we know we're in a downtrend. The bears have full control. We have to be skeptical of the bulls. We can say, yeah, nice bounce, bulls, but you have not changed the trend. You have to prove it to us for us to get excited about any kind of bounce and uptrend. And keep in mind that a week ago, I made a video, maybe a little over a week ago, talking about all the major Canadian MJ names and looking at August lows. And I was looking for a bounce on the weekly time frame compared to those August lows, and that got screwed up a little bit. Number one, due to the APHA news that hurt the sector as a whole, and number two, the continued weakness in the S&P 500. If the S&P 500 can hold the October lows and bounce with some follow-through, I'll be looking for weekly higher lows to form on these major names compared to the August lows and get a couple weeks of follow-through. But again, the S&P 500 is my critical criteria number one, and what I'm watching most closely to dictate what I anticipate to happen in the Canadian MJ sector. TRST, a lot of people interested in this. There's that August low that I'm talking about. We have some lower wicks of bulls trying to buy the dip around the $7 range. We did drop to a lower low. Anything on the weekly, these are our two key resistances. Anything under 880 is just a weekly lower high, and after that is 1047. If we look at the daily time frame, there's our lower high compared to 880 at 845. Bulls need the higher low and break of the lower highs. You can see how the sector is so significantly correlated to itself, where everybody is having the same setup unless there was recent news to break those correlations. But here we are looking for the 4-hour higher low, potentially at 753. Bulls would love to hold 753 on Monday and Tuesday and try and head back up to 845. Same thing as what we're looking for on APH. The 4-hour higher low and the change in trend is absolutely required for any kind of short-term bullish sentiment. RIV on the weekly time frame, all-time low, so a red flag, just like MedMen. Key resistance here, there's no real clear weekly lower high aside from 633, and that's just because it's been a slow fade with very limited bounce attempts. Every week is a lower high. So we're looking at the daily chart for more details on those resistances, and anything under 425 is just a lower high. We have a little bit of a double top at 386 and 383. So again, we look at the 4-hour. We need that higher low on the 4-hour and then a break of 386 to try and change this trend, and 425 is the most important level for me on the daily time frame for the bulls to try and shift this momentum. If we cannot break 425, the bulls don't prove anything to me, and we then have to form a higher low compared to 294. IAN on the weekly time frame, big long lower wick, break of support with a lot of follow through, and anything on the weekly under 792 is just a lower high. As far as the daily chart goes, anything under 633 is just a lower high. Looks like we might be topping out. You get the idea from here. We need the higher low and the break of the lower highs to change this trend for those bulls. If we look at the 4-hour time frame, trying to establish that higher low, bulls would love to hold 547 on Monday and see a bull break of $6 to indicate the potential of that daily shift in momentum. So 4-hour higher lows and higher highs are what we're looking at. But then we zoom out to the daily chart if we get it to see if we're breaking the daily lower highs as well. Some of these names will break the daily lower highs at the same time as they break those 4-hour lower highs if they get continuation. Some of these names will have one more level to break on the daily to get that follow through. MPX, weekly, extremely long lower wick, bulls buying the dip, have to see follow through. Weekly chart, anything under 116 is a lower high. That's a long ways away. On the daily chart, anything under 98 cents, I might as well just call it 99 because that level's right there. 99 has a triple top. Anything under 99 is just a lower high. We topped out at 95 and started pulling back. We need the higher low and then break of the lower highs. Looking at it on the 4-hour time frame, we're looking for that 4-hour higher low to form Monday or Tuesday. KSHB definitely still has our attention. We're looking for it to be uplisted. Keep an eye on KSHB. Look at the lower wicks. Look at the difference in its setup compared to other individual names that we just looked at. There's lower wicks of bulls buying the dip, and we have an uptrend over the last 7 weeks. Every single name that we just looked at, nobody is even close to having an uptrend over the last 7 weeks. It's very notable. We can see on the charts, just like we saw on CRON, something is going on to break the correlation to favor the bulls on KSHB, something behind the scenes, either an uplisting, a deal, probably coming out in the near-term future, and we can see that in the charts when we compare it to everybody else. So the weekly higher low is down at 476. Anything above that keeps the bulls in control. We're looking at key resistance on the daily chart, and you can see the daily chart's just continuing to form higher lows as well. New higher low at 506, significant bull follow through, and now we're looking up at 599. This is an instance where I exited my position at 566 on KSHB, and now I'm looking at this and saying, well, bulls had a significant recovery. Look at the end of the day volume. That tells us something is up. And a good job by our chat room noticing that. There's my circling abilities. But our chat room noticed the volume at the end of the day on Friday. That is very significant. Compare that volume to the rest of the day. And this is not volume that happened after the bell ring. This is volume at 3:55. And you can see the volume leading up into it. It was just a huge surge. And that 10 minutes of volume is more than probably any 15-minute period of volume that we saw at any other point during the day. So a huge surge at the end. I wouldn't be surprised to see news come out Monday morning before the bell rings with that kind of move. But if it doesn't come out, we're still going to be looking for it in the next week or two. But I'm going to have to get back into KSHB if it continues to contradict what the sector is doing here and show us this bullish correlation. So 599 is the most important resistance level, and after 599 is 670, and we're looking at all-time highs. Well, that's all the way up at 851, so I take that back. We have a couple resistances in the upper $6 range to deal with first, and that's still a ways away. And again, obviously the market correlation and the sector correlation is not favorable for us to be looking back at all-time highs, but the bottom line is, just like CRON, this is showing us something's going on behind the scenes that makes it stand out comparative to other individual names. CWEB, and also just want to touch on this point that we will need hourly consolidation after that end of the day bull run. If we don't get news Monday, we're going to look for an hourly higher low to form on Monday. CWEB, long lower wick, holding support. 1056 was support. We bounced off 1080 on the weekly time frame. $17 stands out as a key resistance with 3 weekly tops, and the daily time frame, it's 1694. That's a lower high. Anything under 1694 and 1691 is a lower high. We're looking for that lower high to be set early this coming week. Still watching about that farm bill, but the market is pricing in the farm deal is going to happen to a certain degree. What it doesn't know is when it's going to happen. So we could get a bullish reaction, but don't anticipate this, 30% huge surge, because to see that kind of move, it has to surprise the market. Constellation surprised the market. Altria deal did not surprise the market. We had a rumor that that was coming a couple days before that caused a bull move and caused things to be priced in to a certain degree. The more you surprise the market, whether it's bullish or bearish, the more reaction the market is going to have in terms of significant percentage move. So we know the farm deal is likely coming because the sides have said we're reaching agreements. It's coming. So just keep that in mind. Same thing for APHA. We know that the company is coming with a line-for-line rebuttal. The market has priced that in. We know it's coming. So just keep that in mind, that market psychology, the markets are smart, and if information is known, it gets priced in. Just like KSHB, there's rumors going around on what's potentially happening. We're seeing the price movement. Some of this move is being priced in with people in the know, likely loading up. Again, I have no idea if news is going to come out. This is just a potentially likely scenario to be watching for. But if it does come out, just be aware that this action is telling us that people are loading up in anticipation, and they could be the same people looking to lock in profit when that news does come out. And the people that are going to be buying the news once it's known are going to be buying the shares of the people that already know or already knew what was potentially coming. So that's all we got. Hope you have a good weekend. We'll check back in sometime soon. Have a good day.
That's